Hello.
So where are you? Where are you now today? You're traveling
San
again?
Juan. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. Shall we let me make sure I have this thing here. Blah blah blah. Not quite yet. So tomorrow you'd be traveling home. You'd be on the way home. Okay.
That's
I
right.
understand.
Yeah.
I understand. Not going somewhere tomorrow. You'd be going back.
No, I'm going home tomorrow, and so therefore be more. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand.
And we may not be home on Saturday at all. So I because Monday is a holiday. So I don't,
Monday's a holiday?
Yes, Monday is Columbus Day. I don't know if your company celebrates it, but
oh hell no. We get like 5 holidays all year long. They do absolutely nothing.
I'm not even sure if my company celebrates it, but regardless, I'm taking it off. I mean, okay. I do have, I operate, or we have unlimited PTO. So and the thing is, where all my customers are, they're going to be on holiday on Monday, which is otherwise I would be coming back. I'm coming back here on Tuesday. I would be flying back on Monday if they would be working, but they're not. So I am just like, well.
Because all of your customers in Latin America are all about celebrating the conquistadors? Did I lose you? Just when I was telling about
my current, the focus of my deals right now is in Puerto Rico.
Yeah,
that's where. But remember that because Puerto Rico, it's Columbus Day or Indigenous Peoples Day, whatever the hell it's called right now. I'm not even sure. Is it still Columbus Day? Because I got
it depends. Like in the mainland, I think it depends on state. I don't even think it's a federal holiday.
Remember, this is a federal holiday. No, it's because it's a federal holiday.
It is.
My question is yes, it is. Banks are closed on Monday. There is no school on Monday.
Okay. National holiday, yeah. In many countries.
Second Monday in October, observed in the United States. Yes.
Blah 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 blah. Since 1971, federal holiday, generally observed by banks. Blah blah blah.
Okay. Yes.
And I think some states then have overridden it and said we're going to be Indigenous Peoples Day or whatever. But I guess the federal
correct. But the federal holiday is Columbus Day.
Okay.
So it is observed in a lot of other places. Like I see that in Argentina, Colombia, Peru, Venezuela, Costa Rica. But yes, in the U.S., it's, second Monday of October. Yes, that it's a holiday. There is no school for my son on Monday.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Cool. Shall we start?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Here goes. Blah, 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 blah. Welcome to Curmudgeon's Corner for Friday, October 11th. It's just after 2 UTC as we are starting to record. I am Sam Minter. Yvonne Bowe is with me. And we're going to do another one of these show things.
Thanks. Hello.
And as usual, our agenda is Yvonne and I will both have something a little bit less newsy, or at least less serious newsy.
So do I sound better today on the road since I found the microphone?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
Like last week, I don't know if anybody could notice because I edited out the part where I told Yvonne he was screwed up. But like the first couple minutes of the show, he was on his his Apple ear thingy, bopple things.
AirPods.
That's what they're called. And I paused. I said, Yvonne, before we continue, are you on your AirPods instead of your actual microphone? And he's like, crap. And we switched it over.
For some reason, but the thing is that, it's weird because usually it just uses the last settings I used.
Yep.
Okay. And for whatever the hell reason, last week it didn't. It just decided it was just connect to something else. So but yeah.
But you have found the missing small portable microphone that's the lav kind that attaches to your shirt that I gave him, like theoretically paid for out of the Patreon, the Curmudgeon's Corner Patreon. I haven't actually like logged everything and kept track of it since I did that, but whatever. It sounds
I did find it. It was for whatever the hell damn reason. It was the little baggie that it's in looks like some other baggies that I used to store some other stuff.
Your drugs
and gifts and stuff. And some other like gift bags and stuff. Okay?
Oh, not the baggies for your drugs.
No, not the baggies for the drugs. No, that's a separate stash. Okay.
Okay.
And so it looked like that. And so I think my cleaning lady was cleaning and she put it together with those bags.
Mm-hmm.
And so the other day I was looking, I couldn't find, because I remodeled the office earlier this year and I had reorganized where my stuff was. I was having difficulty finding some documents I needed. I was about to do my taxes and I couldn't find my tax folder. And and so I started just going through the whole office to find some stuff. And lo and behold, together with these bags, wait, I saw, damn it, here it is. I thought actually, because I couldn't find it, that it must have fallen out of my bag and stayed at a hotel, something. I don't know.
Right.
For a bit, but no. It just got mixed up with some similar looking bags that had nothing to do with it, and so that's why I couldn't find it. And so,
okay.
But this time I made sure I grabbed it immediately and I put it back in its proper location, and so I was carrying it with me, and since I'm going to be traveling. Today we're recording today because the next day I'll be traveling, and then because, like I said, I am noticing that it's not an official company holiday, but it doesn't really matter to me because I'm like I mentioned, I think I was interesting to say, we have an unlimited PDO policy, and Monday is not a day that I can really do a lot of work. I've been working very hard on a couple of things with customers that I know that are going to be on vacation. I know they're out, so I'm like, what am I going to do? I mean, that's my focus right now that I've been here. So I will get on a plane again on Tuesday morning and try to sort it out because Monday is not going to be really much productive.
Well, you mentioned you have unlimited. I don't have unlimited. I have an amount that accrues.
Yeah, but you don't use it.
Well, this is what I was going to say. Well, I save it up. Like, I am about to take 3 weeks off. Like,
that's true.
I've got one more week at work, and then I'm going to take 3 weeks off for the stupid election stuff, because and we'll talk like polls and crap at the end of the show, I'm sure. But like right now at this very moment, I counted, and I already forgot whether it was 30 or 40, but like on the order of 30 or 40 data points that came in over the course of the day today. But I was at work doing my actual job, and so I didn't put those data points in yet, and now I'm doing this show, so I'm not putting them in. So and after we're done here, I'm undoubtedly going to have to pay attention to my son for a little bit, and then it's going to be like 10. It's going to be like 10 or 11. It's going to be like 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and then I'm going to have to spend the next 4 or 5 hours putting these damn data points in, and like you're going to be like, why does it take you 4 or 5 hours? That's probably an exaggeration. It probably doesn't actually take that long. But also the way I have it set up is very much a sequential one at a time thing. Like I put in one data point and then I tell my system to process it, and it updates a bunch of stuff, and it sends out a toot, and it does this stuff. And then I check all of it to make sure it all works properly before I enter the next data point. So it's like, yeah, actually typing it in takes like a minute or less, but like then I wait for it.
You're just a slacker. I mean,
and I know people keep telling me, well, not people keep telling me, I keep telling myself, I could switch. There are a couple of sources where I could just ingest polls automatically and just have this stuff happen without human intervention. But the problem is, like, I make different decisions about which polls to include and which not to include than the various sources I could use. And so I'm still doing it by hand because I like look at each one and decide what I want to do with it and blah, 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 and enter it or don't enter it and blah, blah, blah. And I know I could probably build something that made like looked at those other sources and then said, do you want to include this one? Yes or no? And would still save me time. Maybe for 2028. We'll think about it again. But like at the moment, I do a lot of manual stuff, but the manual stuff, make sure I am paying attention to it. With every data point that goes in, I'm like, what was the effect of this data point? Anyway. But yeah, so yeah, I have, but my point is the maximum vacation time accrual is 4 weeks, and I'm going to use up 3, and I'd already used a little bit on one thing or another. So it means actually after I come back from this, I'm going to have very few days left. So like if something comes up, I'm going to be like, oh, I'm out of time. I can't do whatever. Now that, they'll probably, if something if something major came up, right, they would let me go negative, but because
I actually, that was one thing. I was at a place where I know that for stuff like that, they could let me go negative on time off, and I would have to make it.
I mean, it's not you wouldn't go negative because like I want to go to the Bahamas for a week, but if you like had,
no, like you went,
if you had an emergency
because your mom was sick. You had to go take care of her for a couple of weeks. So you need to take the time off. Yeah, you could go negative. Something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And but yeah, it's kind of annoying because like normally, like I keep getting the notices that I'm like, you're at or near your maximum. You better use some time or you're going to be wasting it because you won't accrue anymore. And but this year I knew I'm taking the 3 weeks off at the end of the year. So I'm like, okay, whatever. But this is exactly why, like way back in the day when I did random trips, it was exactly because I realized I was never using my vacation time. And I was like, I should use my vacation time. I'll do one random trip every quarter, no matter what. And I used up my vacation time. But yeah, since then, I haven't been doing that. So I should do it again. Okay. Were these things our butt firsts, or do we have something else to say for our butt first? I really should catch up on my movies. I should keep up with. I should catch up, like log all my movies and TV and books and stuff.
Well, take that as my butt first. What's your butt first? You're gonna go with a movie?
No, because I haven't logged them, so I have no idea. I don't have nothing to talk about.
All right. Well, then, okay. All right. Well, I don't have anything else to say.
So are we going to jump? We're going to take a break and jump straight into newsy stuff. Okay. Whoa. It's amazing. Like, I'm trying to think any quick, because I've become so used to the fact that I always had a book or movie to talk about that I haven't been bothering to log the little goofy things that I might want to talk about. And
we have a lot of things that I'm like, the weather this time, like usually, here's the one thing, because like the weather this time,
the weather is
newsy.
News. Yes.
Right.
Yes. So,
I can't.
I will mention one thing, except it's I haven't actually done it yet, but I'm seeing all over my social media feeds the people talking about the geomagnetic storm and how the aurora, the northern.
Yeah. That's going to extend for what?
It's going to be very far south, nowhere near where you are in Puerto Rico.
No.
But like as far south as the Carolinas, on the East Coast, and as far south as Central California on the West Coast. And earlier this year, I think it was in May, there was one of these, and Alex and I don't know if I talked about it on the show. I probably did, but Alex and I actually went out, like we left home at like 1:00 in the morning, drove like an hour east, so we were away from the city lights in sort of the darkness in the mountains, and went and watched the aurora for a little bit. And it was one of those things where, yeah, you could see it with the naked eye, but you could see it so much better with your phone camera. And it's supposed to be almost as good tonight as it was back last May. Maybe in some places just as good. And I don't know. I on the one hand, I'm sort of like, it would be cool to see again. But on the other, I'm like, I did that in May. Like maybe like if I walk out the front door and I can actually see it from my house, then maybe I'll take a few pictures. But I don't know if I'm going to like wait until the middle of the night and then drive out an hour, to find a really dark place and all that, which was cool. Cause you could, like last time when this happened in May, you could see it from my front door, but barely. And you really needed the camera assist. Like you couldn't really tell with the naked eye, but you could tell with the camera. But whereas when you really went out to a dark place, you could tell with the naked eye, and it was spectacular with the camera, And so, but I'm like, I did that. Do I really have to do it again? I don't know, but it is really cool. And my social media feeds are right now. Like I'm looking at the screen on Mastodon over here, and like every other thing is like a picture of the aurora from somewhere in the country, and they're looking cool, So I don't know.
I was wondering if I had seen it.
Yeah.
I was wondering if I had seen it, and I finally did find some pictures that I took of Aurora Borealis when I was flying like one night, going when I was flying, I'm not sure on which leg, but on the trip, it was going to London, I think, to Asia or to Asia. Well, I was heading to Asia for something, and we were doing, and I actually did find that it was like in 2019 that when we flew that I was able to see it out the window. So it's like remembering if I saw it, and it was. I managed to grab some pictures of it. It was like really bright. It was cool. I mean, it was so yeah. So I have seen it. I was like trying to remember. Did I have seen it? I'm like, shit, I've seen it, right? Yeah, and it was like I did find the pictures. So it was like, I was like on one night overnight, like doing the circle route thing.
Yes. How
so
planes go over the northern areas because it's shorter.
It's shorter, yes.
Because
the Earth is round.
Unlike what some people think, it's a flat plate sitting on a turtle or something, whatever,
Right.
But, Anyway, okay. Anything else? Shall we take that break and hit the more?
Yeah, let's take the break. Let's go. Yeah,
here we go.
Let's go.
Here it comes. Do you want to understand what is really going on with the presidential election cycle? Then go to electiongraphs.com right away. There you'll find charts and graphs covering the nomination processes in both parties and the general election race for electoral college votes. For the delegate races, we track not just delegate totals, but also the ever-important analysis of how each candidate has to do with the remaining delegates in order to actually win. For the Electoral College, we track state-by-state poll averages to categorize which states are actually in play and which are not, in order to show you the range of likely electoral results and how that changes over time. Sure, you can get some of this stuff elsewhere, but not in exactly the same way, and not from me, Sam, your prime curmudgeon. I think my election trackers are better than the rest, so come look at mine. electiongraphs.com. Yeah, so anyway, that's, I was just thinking as that was playing that that may well be like the last time it may be the last time I played a break before the actual election. Because it only comes up like 1 out of every 10 times I play the break, and we've only got like a few weeks left. And Maybe it will, maybe it won't. It's random, but I made that break in 2016. I've just used the same one ever since, even though I've changed some stuff since then. But I just pull it out every 4 years. It's fine. It's fine. God damn it. Anyway, your turn. You want to talk about hurricanes for yours and then elections for mine, or you want to do something different?
I mean, we've got the hurricanes. I mean, all right. Let's talk about the storms. So so Florida. I'm not in Florida. I'm in Puerto Rico.
You skipped out and left your family to fend for themselves.
Yeah. Look, I had looked at the maps on Sunday. I was talking to my mom. I'm looking at my wife, and I said, "Look, this is not coming down here." But I did have like a contingency plan. I had actually even I saw that I could hold a ticket if I needed to in order to fly back early. And I was like, well, at first I saw that there were plenty available. The thing is that the tickets that were, I realized I didn't even need to hold it. I went and I looked at who was available, and the prices were cheap. And I realized, look, people aren't flying to go there. They're
They're trying to get out. Yeah.
So I saw, look, if I need to get back, it's not a big deal. I can get on the next available flight. It's no big deal. If the track changes, but I looked at the track. I was booked to fly on Monday. I had checked the track the night before. I looked at the track on Monday, and I'm like, listen, we're 48. The computer models are very good at 48 hours out.
Right.
Okay. It's really when it's longer than 72 hours plus where they really are not good. But 48 hours out, they're really good.
And by the way, even at 72, they're much better than they used to be. There's still a lot of room for error.
Yes. But... Yeah, even at 72. But at 48 hours, what the track that was forecasted was within 100 miles of where it went. 100 miles total, north-south, okay? So it was very, very accurate, okay, in that sense. So, look, the storm was forecast to be well north of 200 miles, north of where I live, at least. And so I'm like, look, worst we're going to get, which we just got with Helene, some blustery winds and some rain or whatever. There was a whole bunch, and far more than we have ever gotten before. Strong tornadoes.
Yes.
There were quite a lot of them. We had never gotten so many simultaneous tornado warnings at once. This was a record. There was 125 active tornado warnings that popped up at once.
Across the whole state.
Yeah. Yes. And that was that was a nutty number. We've never had that many at once. And actually, those tornadoes that did touch down in certain places caused significant damage in quite a number of places. And far away from where landfall was, okay? And so that was something that was that was a little bit unnerving because my wife called me and said, "Hey, we got a tornado warning. What do you do?" I'm like, "Well, there's nothing you could do. I mean, you stay inside, locked." I mean, our property is as protected as it can be. So we have hurricane impact glass. We have roofs that were built within the last 10 years. That means that, if you do a new roof, you don't go and you can't build it to whatever standard it was built before. They have been raising the standards of what hurricane protection you got. So it's got to be built to whatever the hell the current standard is. Okay. And so, so they're built for at least a category 4 hurricane, so basically 155 mile an hour wind resistance.
Of course, the wind in an actual tornado can be significantly higher than that.
Can be significantly higher
if you have a direct hit from the tornado.
If you have a direct hit from the tornado.
But tornadoes are much smaller.
It really is, I mean, you can't do, there's not much you can do. about a tornado. I did see a number of the houses that were similar to mine that got hit by a tornado for the most part. What happened was that they lost the for the most part, most of them just lost the decorative coverings.
Right.
Which is, which I don't understand why fucking. I actually have decided that the next time I'm fucking doing one of these roofing projects, I'm going to go with metal roofs. Okay. The hell with this. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck this shit. They're actually, I've seen a whole bunch of companies now, they got these metal roofs. They can withstand 250-mile-an-hour winds, whatever. I'm like, what the hell am I doing? And I saw that's maybe like 20% more money. I'm like, what the hell am I fucking around with this thing? No, the next time just fucking put up a metal roof. The hell with this shit. Okay, they actually look cool, by the way. So it's not bad. So, but anyway, so we had that happen. Okay, that was like happening as the storm was approaching, and the thing is that, as everybody is saying, the landfall with Tampa was always Tampa was the one that everybody was scared about, and it really was
for years and years and years. People have always talked about, like, there are several worst case scenarios that people talk about. They talk about Tampa, they talk about Miami, New York, and New Orleans. And we came close to the worst case in Katrina for New Orleans, but not quite. It actually was better than the worst case. It veered at the last minute, and as bad as Katrina was, it was not the worst case scenario. But for Tampa, and New York has dodged a couple as well. They had that superstorm Sandy, a while, but Sandy was also dodged a little bit away from the worst case scenario. And Tampa is one where, as they talked about a lot this time around, it hasn't had the kind of direct hit they're really worried about for over 100 years. And it's had a few near misses. And this time was once again a near miss, like coming in, a couple dozen miles further south than what would have been the worst case scenario.
But even the thing is that Tampa is far more susceptible than Miami or Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach to the flooding, because of how the Tampa Bay is and how people built around the Tampa Bay. Because on the East Coast in Miami, even though you can get storm surge, it's not as big as a storm surge that you get on the Tampa Bay area. Part of it is because of how the ocean shelf and how it is and how shallow it is coming into Miami. It makes it that you do get surge, but it's not 18 feet of surge. Okay, you get a lot less. The problem in Miami has been more that there's been so much more construction in recent years, and there are many areas that, man, they just flood regularly right now because the drainage and some things haven't been done. The reality is that I think I've mentioned before. Look, I know I have information about what the plans are, which actually they've been made public by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and I've had I've directly seen these plans. They have a great plan to avert that in Miami, and they have the money assigned to it. The complaint was, the last time it was presented, is that it involved a lot of seawalls, and the people thought they looked ugly.
Right.
And the frustration expressed to me is like, these idiots are worried about how it fucking looks, instead of the fact that we've got a plan that we have worked on for over a decade, so the fucking place doesn't flood in case of the worst case fucking scenario. Okay?
Right.
The worst case scenario of climate change, the worst case scenario of a hurricane, the worst case scenario, whatever the fuck. We already made the fucking plan, and you assholes are all dicking around because you think the walls look ugly. And they're like, they want to just fucking they want to just kill themselves. Okay? All right? Because it's just stupid. You're engineers. You figured out how to fix the problem, and then you've got politics, which Florida, unfortunately, has been flooded with politics infiltrating into this shit right now a lot over the last decade. More so than ever, because before It wasn't as bad, but the hurricane went and like hit straight onto Sarasota, which is not the worst case. And what it did is actually drain to Tampa Bay instead of actually pushing the water into the Tampa Bay. So Tampa Bay did not get hit. They actually had more flooding from Helene as it went by. And they actually had this one because of the way it went through. And thankfully, because the water was cooler as it was approaching their strength did go down. But the places there on the shore, they had been hammered already by storm surge, from Helene, and so they got it again. And a lot of the structures in the path of the storm, there's still a lot of people that have built homes that basically are just not built for hurricanes. And somebody was asking me the other day, and I did share an article, explained a little bit this, like, so why is that? Why so many people in Florida, and why they build these houses? And part of it is that Florida had a very, very, very long streak of not getting hit by a lot of storms. Okay. And even in the west coast of Florida too. Look, we're talking about Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay has not been hit by a major hurricane in 100 years. This is one of the ones that's come the closest, okay, in recent times. And so Florida had a very long streak of that. And then in the early 90s, they got hit by Andrew, okay? And when they got hit by Andrew, what happened was, okay, Miami, South Florida, Miami, Palm Beach, and Broward adopted much stricter construction codes. But the rest of the state didn't. They acted like, that's just Miami. We that's not going to happen here. Which is just idiotic, okay? So the rest of the state has operated, and South Florida had, I kept never understanding this. We would get I was talking to somebody that just bought a house in Jacksonville 2 years ago, which, by the way, is also on target to be able to be hit by a hurricane. It's had close calls. And they were paying $2,000 in insurance. Well, I'm paying $8,000 in insurance.
Right.
And I'm like, and their house is not, the house, they just bought a new house that's built with wooden walls. It was just built recently. And I'm like, this thing in a fucking Cat 3 hurricane, now forget about 4 or 5. Cat 3 storm, this thing is gone. There's nothing left here, okay? They're pitching up matchsticks. And they're still building these new. You have so many people that came from the South, moved into Florida, built houses like they were building houses in Tennessee, okay? Kentucky, in those areas. Built them especially in the northern part of the state. It really makes no sense. So many of them moved. And because there was such a lull in storms, you still have a lot of this construction around. Now, in a lot of cities, I know that my nephew just moved into a new place in Orlando, and I had been worried about, is he going to be okay? And he told me, actually, no, this new place that I went into Orlando, which is not close to the coast, which actually, one of the things is the hurricane moves inland. It pretty quickly loses strength in terms of wind and whatnot. If you're in an area that is not prone to flooding, he told me, hey, it was windy, whatever, but everything was fine, it's no problem. And they had impact glass. They've got, structure is solid. It's not made out of wood. And he was like, okay, so he was fine. But in Central Florida, for example, those people in those more modern areas around Orlando, I talked to a couple of people, they were fine. But there was one person specifically that I knew lived somewhere further south, close to Sebring, Florida. And I knew that all those houses there were basically pre-manufactured houses, which is almost like a trailer on top of a fucking slab of concrete. And I am like, this person saying, well, I'm going to write it out. I was looking at that map. This fucking storm was going straight for them. And I'm like, I tried to call him. I said, you're out of your mind. Get the hell out of there. No, we're going to ride this out. Okay, look, these people are not island people. They were from Indiana. They've never lived through this.
Right.
Okay, so today, fine, they posted today. They were alive, yes. But they posted that half the houses around them were destroyed. And I'm like, okay, how could you just, I mean, do you realize I don't know about you, but if I'm somewhere where the house next to mine or several of them got destroyed and I lucked out, I'm not feeling very good the next day. And let me tell you something, that night had to be horrible because my wife still, from the one big hurricane that we had in 2004, Wilma, still is petrified from them. She's got post-traumatic stress from it.
In the short time I lived at Florida was like one of the years that we got a
very active. We had a whole bunch.
And for the first one, like we picked up the whole family, all the pets, everything, and we evacuated all the way to New Orleans. Mm. The second or third one, we're like, this one's not that bad. We'll hang out. And like, it was scary.
Yes.
We were all fine. The place was fine, whatever. This was when we were staying in like your relative's place.
Yes.
And it was fine, but there was lots of damage in the neighborhood. We stayed in like the noise of the storm going over because we'd boarded up everything so you couldn't see outside.
Right.
It was just the noise of like destruction obviously happening around.
Outside. Yes.
Things creaking, things slamming, things whatever. And it was a little scary. And we were like, okay, if there's another one, we're
out of here.
We're gone. we're gone.
And look, here's the one thing. Look, my family, like me, my parents, or whatever. It's one of these things, right? People are like, oh my God, Florida is like, nobody can live in Florida, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, fuck, man, I've lived with this shit since I was a little kid. I mean, we've had this, this is what happens when you live in the Caribbean, in the tropics. This is what it is. Florida had gotten lucky for many years, but look, I still remember when I first went to Carnegie Mellon the first year, okay? 2 weeks later, okay? Hurricane Hugo hit Puerto Rico. Hurricane Hugo didn't hit Florida, but it hit I think it was like Charleston, okay? South Carolina. It destroyed Charleston, South Carolina. And it got up to category, I think it was like category 3, 4, 5. Listen, that was brutal, okay? And when it hit, it destroyed. It hit San Juan. And that was, and look, when it hit Puerto Rico, hours before the storm hit, back then, telephone to Puerto Rico to here was not on fiber underwater. It was satellite. And so, damn it, the satellite signals the satellite stopped working. I don't know if the dish, whatever, but I couldn't place a call out. And man, I spent 2 weeks that I had no idea what the fuck happened. I could read the newspapers, but in terms of, and even, it was a lot of coverage because, what happens when you're in the U.S. and like whatever happened, something in Puerto Rico. I mean, they'll mention it, but they're not going to be covering it in depth, especially back then. Mm-hmm. And so, I'm making calls. I actually talked to some people in San Juan. Finally, I was able to, because then what happened was forget the satellites. Satellites come back up. The phone lines to where my parents lived got knocked out. Okay. And so the power lines got knocked out. Everything got knocked out. But it was several weeks until I found out they were okay. But the thing is that, we had that, my mom endured her first hurricane when she was, 5, 6 years old. We lived through them like the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, every year. I mean, I don't know. To me, it's like, look, it's something that from where we are that you live, that you prepare for. Okay. That's just the way it is. And you prepare for it properly, and it's usually okay. Now, Puerto Rico was, before Hurricane Maria, had never had a lot of problems with recovering from a storm. The circumstances surrounding what happened like here with that hurricane in 2017 had to do first with the fact that the island government had been in bankruptcy. And that had been something that had been going on, and that had caused that the electric grid had been left in a state of total disrepair. That it was just a everybody knew, look, if a major hurricane hits it, their electric grid is in such bad shape, it's not going to work. And as you talk to people here, it wasn't the storm itself. The storm itself, the winds. It's not like the wind knocked out people. It wasn't. It wasn't that. It was the aftermath, unfortunately, that killed people. Because when you had so many people that couldn't get, more specifically, medical treatment, people that needed medicines, oxygen, the people that they couldn't get the help for that. It was the post storm. And the lack of recovery, and the fact that, it's been shown right now already that the Trump administration actually blocked aid to Puerto Rico post-hurricane. Mm-hmm. He didn't want to send the aid. He was like, fuck you. He actively sabotaged the recovery.
There was more about that just this last week. That more, revelations of the Trump administration still coming out. More details about how, not just for Puerto Rico, but for California, for other places.
For other places.
He absolutely was like, hey, did they support me? If the answer is no, then why should they get aid? And specifically, the example that came out this week for California was related to the fires and everything like that. And somebody actually had to go and show him the number of Trump voters in the specific county that was having the fire issue. And show him that, even though it was California, and even though it was a blue state,
it's a red area of the state.
It was a red area of the state, and not only that, the population density was such that the number of Trump voters in that one county was bigger than the number of Trump voters in some entire states. And then he's like, okay, fine, send them some aid.
But this is the thing, and so the reality is we approach this election again. Is how that really impacted. Now, in what happened right now in Florida with Milton,
let's talk about this one.
No. It's just so many people are talking about. Look, we're getting more storms, and they're like, oh my God, it's just. Listen, unfortunately, Florida had been lucky for a long time not getting hit with storms. People got lulled into complacency. Okay. And so that is why I think, and you've got a lot of newcomers that just aren't used to storms.
I was going to say that there are a few things here. One, there was a period that was a lull, like you said. Two, just in general, because of climate change, they're going to be more and bigger, and the effects are going to be stronger. Three, you do have huge population increases since the last time there were big stuff, and lots of new people who've never experienced blah blah blah. And you've got, you were talking before, there in some places, you've got the people who are doing the regulation are not all in on the idea that, okay, you build something new, it has to meet these newer standards,
right?
And of course, you've also got a wide variety of incomes out there as well, where,
oh God, yes,
there's some folks that can afford all the fancy, super protective stuff, and there's some folks that can't. And what do you do there?
But listen, listen. Puerto Rico has showed that you could build, it doesn't have to be just to rich people. We got houses over here that are built for less than $100,000 that can withstand a storm better than houses that I know in the States, in Florida, are built for $1 million.
Well, a big part of it is just use the right construction materials for the area that you're constructing.
Right.
Like, we're in an earthquake zone.
Right.
In an earthquake zone, wood is better than concrete.
100%. Yes.
But if you're in a hurricane zone,
you want concrete.
You don't want wood.
No, exactly. You don't want wood. And talking about climate change now, it sparked a different thing in terms of hurricanes. This was a very strange hurricane, and this is a hurricane that was definitely, absolutely, one that climate change spurred that in the past would not have happened because it formed off the Yucatan Peninsula, okay? Right there in the Gulf of Mexico. And that didn't happen before. You didn't get a storm. The water used to be colder there. So you never got these storms forming there and then strengthening that quickly because it gathered steam and strengthened super quick, okay? and then go in this west to east route, which is not. I don't know.
It's not the way you usually think of hurricanes going.
No, they don't do that. Okay, it's the reason why Tampa never got hit. It just, and so all of a sudden you've got a Gulf of Mexico that is a lot warmer, that all of a sudden can fuel a storm and have it go from tropical storm to Cat 5 in like this in a snap of a finger. So yeah, I mean, it's creating a different threat that what you were seeing. And so I think that's one thing where we used to be preparing for a different threat. And now, because of climate change, you're getting a totally different new one at this point. And the whole damn state of Florida has to adopt the same damn freaking building code that takes into account storm surge, hurricanes, what the fuck the strength is, and so forth and so on. You can't, because right now, it used to be that the Panhandle, West Coast, North Florida, whatever. Man, the Panhandle has gotten hammered by 3 hurricanes in the last couple of years. 3 of them. Okay? And, well, at this point, one thing about it is that because insurance companies have basically said, fuck you, we're not, we're not insuring you. We're not, either, so that's pushed some people to not build. However, what we've gotten also is a whole bunch of people that have decided to rebuild there with no insurance. And no mortgage, no nothing, and a place that got obliterated already. And I'm just like, I mean, it's listen, the storm surge shows that place is just not a good place to build. Yes, I know you love your ocean view, but it's just not survivable. And so, I don't know. I will say this: no significant change to this stuff is going to happen to this governor. I will say that thank God that the worst case scenario of this storm did not happen. However, regardless of that, the damage has been quite extensive, especially in the west coast of Florida, because they got storm surge from 2 storms back to back. And oh, by the way, the hurricane season ain't over. Right, we still got a few more weeks. And last year we had a hurricane in November. So, it's not like the hurricane season. It's not like, closing time. Okay, yeah, no more hurricanes. November 1st. Ha ha ha. See ya. No. It's not. It doesn't work that way, unfortunately.
Yeah, there was that one year where they had to go into the Greek letters, right?
Yes.
That's happened more than once, actually, I think. But
yes.
And if I remember,
we haven't actually gone through that many letters. The thing is, some people.
Well, and I know, the time frame, that time that happened, it also just stretched. So there essentially wasn't an end. You had the new season started picking up before there was no month that had nothing.
Yeah, and so I look. The one thing about it is that predicting how many hurricanes you're going to get in a season, obviously, and people, it's like, they predict there's going to be the most active season, blah blah blah. And look, the one thing is that you can't predict how many hurricanes you're going to get because you have to get the conditions. However, what has been clearly demonstrated by this storm is that the conditions are there. That once you get something spooled up, it's spooling up in places that you don't expect to an intensity so quickly that you wouldn't have gotten before.
Right.
And that's your current climate reality. And oh, by the way, the other thing is that I don't care how many people want to argue with me about this. There is no safe place from climate change. It doesn't fucking matter. It's pick your poison. Okay. All right. It doesn't exist. Okay. Yeah. I was talking about, I was having lunch in California with these people. They were telling me about how they had an auto dealership that was in Kansas that got completely obliterated by tornadoes like a couple of years ago. Okay, just gone. $100 million business, just completely destroyed. Okay. With the wildfires, with the flash floods, with what happened in North Carolina and Tennessee, like right now, with that tropical storm that went and churned all the way inland, all the way over there, and caused all that damage. I had somebody argue with me. I don't know if you remember that last year they had these crazy flash floods in Las Vegas.
Vaguely.
Yeah, there was a ridiculous rain event in Las Vegas. Is that right? But something, once again, one of these things that never happened, where they had this massive rain event in Las Vegas that caused crazy flash floods, where everything was like, I mean, the streets looked like rivers. Cars were being dragged. It was just crazy. Somebody was trying to argue with me that that's not a natural disaster, and I'm like, that's not okay.
Unless you're going to argue it's a man-made disaster instead.
Well, you could say that.
Yeah.
So we could argue that all of these are right now are man. They're influenced. They have been influenced by our influence on the planet. That's for
humanity has made it worse.
Humanity has made it worse. But Sam, do you have the joystick hiding over there in that shelf over there where you control the storms?
Wait a second. Yes,
that's
I do.
It. Oh, okay. There you go. So that's how you steer it into the.
I steer the storm with this little joystick.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I push the button a few times if I want to make it stronger.
That's tornadoes. That makes it tornadoes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So. Yeah, you click the button when you click it a whole bunch of times. That's why they got so many tornadoes. You're just nonstop clicking the button.
Exactly.
So
real quick before we move on from this subject, do you have a quick summary of like what the actual damage looks like as of what we know right now?
They're still going through. I will say this. I expected worse. I talked to people in Central Florida, and a lot of the people there that I expected to have no power. They had power. They had water. They had power. I saw that Disney is opening tomorrow again.
Right. Okay.
And so that means that they didn't get that. Now I will say that Disney does definitely prepare their parks. I'm surprised by how well they have designed those parks to withstand storms.
Right.
Because they've gotten hit by several. And it's like, it's fine.
They're closed for like a day.
Yeah, they're closed for like a day, and then they're like, we're cleaned up. It's fine.
You did have that stadium lose its roof, right?
That stadium lost its roof, but I realized that I don't understand why we're talking about shitty construction. Man, I mean, that stadium was just, the roof was like cloth. I mean, it would have come off by just me blowing hard. It's just ridiculous. I don't understand how they thought that was like a great place to stage people. I mean, I realize that I see Tropicana Field, and that's the stadium that had, and it looked like it was just barely a cloth.
Well, I heard some people talking about it, saying that at least theoretically, even though, yes, it was some sort of special fabric or whatever, it was supposed to be rated for winds that were greater than what this hurricane sent through. So something was wrong, or somebody cheaped out.
So somebody screwed up. Okay, all right, fair enough. Because the one thing is that the roof on because I think most of these were built relatively, not that far apart. The baseball stadium in Miami. The roof of this baseball stadium in Miami is like a steel structure. It's like super, very, very sturdy looking, at least. And this thing is just looks like a flimsy piece of cloth. But I guess that they said, okay, that's what I was checking. That I was wondering what it was rated for, and so I guess somebody just screwed up. Okay, that happens.
We'll find out.
And the one thing about a structure like that. But one thing about a structure like that is that it takes just a weak spot,
right,
that they screwed up, for the whole thing to fail. And so it may have just been that they made, you know, wherever it was installed, they left a weak spot that nobody identified, and that's why it failed. So that could be that. But
yeah,
how
are we?
Other than that,
I know we're not very far in, and people are still searching and stuff. But how are we on death toll compared? Like Helene ended up with like 240 something.
nah, nothing like that. No, you know what? People, because Helene just happened. Even though I talked about a couple of people that didn't take it seriously and whatnot, man, people really evacuated, and they evacuated early. They really took it seriously. They saw what happened with Helene. People got the fuck out.
Right.
And so yeah, I do think that the fact that we had that unfortunate incident just happened recently with Helene made it that yeah, I mean, people really did evacuate early. The one thing that was amazing was that usually sometimes in these evacuations, like the day before it hits, people are still jam-packed in traffic. And the reality was that the day before it hit and the hours before, the roads were clear because everybody had already evacuated.
There were all kinds of pictures of the traffic jams, but they were earlier. They were like more than a day before.
More than a day before, yeah. They were already cleared out. And so it wasn't really, you know, I think that absolutely saved lives. And so far, I haven't heard of any reported deaths yet from the storm. I know that not even from the tornadoes and whatever, but so far I haven't heard of any.
I've seen some reports of deaths from the tornadoes.
That's the one that from the tornadoes is the one that I think that there may be some. I hadn't heard any because from the others, but at this point, I still had not seen any reports of that yet. But I know from the tornadoes, they were still digging through because, man, the tornadoes. It was just so many different places, and it hit people just unexpectedly. Like they just didn't expect that was going to happen. Well, now they're saying, okay, first count, 11 dead that I'm looking at right now.
And it is still early. They're going to be finding people for a while.
It is still early.
Like people who didn't leave and were in flimsy buildings and all that kind of stuff. I
do think that, thank God that so many people went and like evacuated early, thank God, because it would have been a lot worse. I think it would have been. And that's the main thing that we got, thank God. So.
Right. Okay. Shall we take a break and then start talking politics? Before I do that, though, I just want to do a call out.
Yeah. For
most of this last segment, Sean has been watching us live. So welcome.
Woo!
So welcome, Sean, and glad to have you here. And hope you're enjoying watching live. Very exciting.
Live. Doing it live.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, here we go. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll do the election 2024 politics thingy boo blop. Here we go.
Thing boop.
Yeah, boop. If my mouse works, why is my mouse not working? You know, sometimes things are stupid. Like, let me try the other mouse. Like, for some reason, I was unable to click with the one mouse, but here we go.
You're supposed to say do. Do. Alex Amzela! Alex Amzela is awesome. Its videos are fun. And today, once again, we have one of our most loyal subscribers here to tell you how awesome Alex Amzela is.
I'd say on a rate from 1 to 10, Alex Amzela is awesome at, 37, 82. He's pretty radical. His videos are phenomenal. They're full of creativity. And
they're so funny and exciting to watch.
Wow, what happened to your voice then, Amy? Was that Dad pretending to be you? Because the audio was distorted when it really wasn't? Because I told him to?
Yes!
Good job on remembering, Dad. Do.
Okay. Oh, wait. Okay, we are back. Very exciting. Back. So I guess I will start as I have the last few weeks. with the whole election thingy. And specifically, I'll start with polling and election graphs. I mentioned at the beginning of the show how many new polls are coming in. This is why I'm taking off the last couple weeks before the election, because this just becomes out of control. Okay. I'm counting right now. Today, state level polls only, not the national. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Oh, wait. I'm counting wrong. And these are data points. Like some polls have multiple data points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Skip the national ones. 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40. There were 40 state level polls released today that I have not yet put into the system. I will do it soon. But here's the deal. The bottom line summary is very similar to when we talked about it last week, that we are still in a situation where really it is too close to call. There are so many states, and like these 40 polls that I just mentioned, I scanned through them. I don't think they're going to change the big picture here. These 7 key states are all really, really close and probably beyond the ability of polling to tell the difference of who's ahead or who's not, and like which way will the polls be wrong this time. However, having said all that, for about the last week and a half to 2 weeks, Harris has had a string of really bad swing state polls. And really bad. What do I mean by really bad? They're still really close, but more that have narrow Trump leads and less that have narrow Harris leads. They're narrow regardless, but with my current averages without those 40 new polls that I just mentioned, Pennsylvania and Wisconsin are both on the Trump side of the line. Barely. Like we got Pennsylvania at 0.3% and Wisconsin at 0.4% Trump leads in my 5 poll averages. These new polls will change that.
It's basically a toss-up.
It's basically a toss-up, but like they had spent most of the time for the last couple months on the Harris side of the center line. Right now, they're on the Trump side of the center line, but
let's
just
be
barely.
fair.
Let me say this.
But
Let me say this. First of all, like last week, we talked about how a bunch of them are low quality pollsters. There are a couple higher quality pollsters that weighed in, like Quinnipiac and Emerson and a couple others. And they're all those sort of agreed with the smaller pollsters that have less reputation. But like the latest things that I saw, like I scanned through the 40, even though I haven't put them in yet. I think Pennsylvania is going to look a little bit more blue after I put them in, but Michigan and Wisconsin are going to look a little bit more red after I put them in. The bottom line is they're so close, but like I want the trend to reverse. We absolutely know, like, look, exactly. First of all, the bottom line is it's too close to call. It's too close to call. A little bit on the red side is not all that different from a little bit on the blue side. However, coupled with the last few elections have underestimated the Republicans a bit, I really would feel much, much, much better if we had a situation where the tipping point was on the Harris side of the line by like 1 or 2%. Than right now, where the tipping point is on the Trump side of the line by about 0.4%. And, again, this when I enter the latest set of polls, it'll change. And then there'll be more polls on Friday and more polls on Saturday and more polls on Sunday. This is going to all wiggle around. The bottom line is just too close to call. But I still, like, a month ago, Harris was looking stronger than she does now. And I would prefer to be back there than where we are now. Like, it's sort of like we were, for most of the time since August, if you looked at everything, it's been a very narrow Harris lead when you do all the state-by-state poll averages like I do. So it makes me nervous when right now it's a very narrow Trump lead instead. Either way, it's very narrow, but I'd rather it be on the other side. And that's roughly where we are.
One of the things, so we've been talking about the polls and the quality, and there was this article from the Tilt in the New York Times that I'd shared, like it was October 6th. And the headline on it was how one polling decision is leading to two distinct stories of the election.
Yes.
And it talked about the methodological decisions that seem to have produced two parallel universes of political polling. And it is this thing about weighing on recalled vote.
Yes.
Which means that you're trying to account for how voters say they voted in the last election.
Yeah, basically what you're doing is you're asking everybody how they voted in 2020, and then you weight all of your responses to try to get it to match the actual election results in 2020, because you sort of are taking that as a baseline that, like, if you weight that, then everything else should wait. Then you're sort of measuring who changed their mind since last time, and maybe that'll be more accurate than other ways of weighting. And part of what Nate Cohn discussed in this article you're talking about is most of the time in the past, weighting this way has been considered to be a very, very bad idea, and would get wrong answers a lot. But a lot of pollsters are doing it this time, basically because they're like, hey, we got the Trump thing wrong 2 elections in a row. Maybe this will fix it. Did I summarize that correctly?
And so, yes, that is correct. And and that's exactly what it is. And the reality is that it's a big decision. Okay, all right, and it does make a lot of it does impact the polls significantly. And so what it would do is that if you went and you shifted from that methodology to actually doing it based on the result, it moves a lot of things towards the Harris side of the ledger substantially.
Well,
and so
except that example in Florida, where it went the other way.
I don't even understand what the hell that
there was a Siena poll that Nate Cohn at the New York Times also used as an example of this effect. That not counting this poll, the polling average in Florida had Trump ahead by just under 5%, 4 or 5%.
Right, four. Yeah, right.
Yeah, right. At the low end 3 if he got lucky.
Yeah. It was about 4%.
Or if Harris. Yeah, I mean, my averages had dipped down as low as 3, but had been back up to 4 or 5 by the time this Siena poll came out. But the point is, the range things were going on was under 5. But all of a sudden, Siena comes in as like Trump's ahead by 14.
14. And we're all like, come on.
And it's like nowhere near the rest. Like I'm looking at my chart for Florida right now. I mean, before this came in, and I say 14, but actually, like, they released like 5 different versions of the poll, depending on likely or registered, whether you include leaners or you don't, whether you include third parties or not. They ranged from 11% to 14%, depending on which view you looked at. But before that, the previous polls were 4%, 6%, 2%, 3%, 4%, 4%, 5%, 2%, 1%. There was one poll that had it down to 1%, and so like, it's like, and this supposedly is the poll that Nate Cohn was using as an example of not doing this weighting that everybody else is doing, and it moved everything in the opposite direction. So I don't know. Like, the other thing that Nate Cohn also did, the New York Times, last time around in 2020, I think it was 2020, maybe it was even 2016, but I think it was 2020, where they took one actual poll and they shared the raw data with, I think it was 3 different polling companies to
Okay.
use their own weighting methodologies on the same data. And there was a massive spread between what, and I don't remember the numbers because this was years ago, but there was a massive spread of variation based exclusively not on the poll data itself, not on the random sampling they did, nothing like that, but on the analysis that they did to weight it before coming to a conclusion. Because all pollsters these days they can't just like call 1 million people, get 1,000 to actually answer the phone, and then just divide and do the math. Like, because the people who are responding to the phone aren't necessarily representative of the electorate, and you have to adjust it to try to match them up. But I want to use a nicer term, but it's guesswork. You are guessing what the final electorate is going to turn out. You're guessing what turnout is like. You're guessing questions like, does the youth vote actually turn out this time around, or did it go back to like they used to be in previous years? Because the youth vote was really high in 2020 and 2022, abnormally high. Is it abnormally high again, or is it low again like it was?
Who the fuck knows?
And you're guessing. And
well, part of the problem is that is the thing about this, and that's what makes this, because we don't have large margins, is why this damn thing makes it that it's so fucking unpredictable.
Right?
Because
it's because it's so close that you like polling can tell you, like, if somebody's winning 60-40, okay.
We're fine. Yeah.
Who's going to win, and polling can give you a really good idea about that. But if it's really damn close to 50-50, polling just doesn't know. And like the kind of probabilistic stuff I do on my site tries to like compensate for that a little bit by how much they've been off by in the past, but it's still like, okay, if you have like right now, okay, I have, Harris having like a 30% chance, but a 30-70% chance is still like,
sorry. I was trying to find a robo-taxi launch. I have that ready. I'm sorry. Shut up, phone.
Anyway, a 30% chance is, okay. Trump at 70% is favored, but 30% is easily happens. It's not like it's not like if the underdog wins in that situation, nobody's surprised. Yeah, it was the underdog winning, but it was a conceivable thing. It's not like, you're going to be shocked at, oh my God, they won. And also because everything's so close and dependent on like this week's polling and what was in the field, like things are moving around. Like it could be radically different in a few days. And so I don't know. And this is why like the big pollsters often like their trend lines are very smoothed out. So like things don't move very quickly. On election graphs, I'm set up so that things do move quickly, and that there are pros and cons to that. The con is, of course, a few outliers can throw me way off for a few days until they age out of my averages. The pro, though, is I can pick up changes faster than the people who are averaging over long periods of time. It's one of the reasons why election graphs was one of the few places that saw the last minute move towards Clinton in 2016. But whatever. I on polling, one thing I saw, I don't know if I mentioned this on the show before, or I was having an out of show conversation, but I saw an article, and I won't be able to remember the reference, but there is a group that has had a huge amount of success in predicting they are not involved. They're not trying to do the US presidential election right now, but they've done some local elections in like Europe. Okay.
Yeah.
And they have gotten some predictions that were super, super close to the actual answer. Like not only within like a percent or two, but within like a couple hundred votes of the actual answer. And they're not doing polling at all. The way they are doing it is they do a demographic model, and then they do a simulation where they make a little.
I did hear this. Yes.
They make a little AI model of every human and try to predict based on everything they can find out about that user, about that person. Because these are actual people, and you can find out information about them online. You can find out, by scanning their social media, do they seem to lean Republican or Democrat? You can find out, their age and their race and their sex and, where they went to school. You can find out all kinds of information about these people. And basically they build a simulation of each actual individual voter and try to predict how that voter is going to vote. And then they run this simulation, and they've apparently gotten very, very close to the real answers. And because they're predicting not only how they're going to vote, but if they're going to vote as well.
Okay.
And so I don't know. I just think that it's interesting, cool, and a little bit scary. Because they're basic, because look at Yvonne's social media. He's voting for Harris. Yeah, they could listen to the podcast.
Fuck, I mean, if they thought I was voting for Trump, then Jesus Christ, they need to take some psychedelic drugs.
Okay, so that's it for polling. Still too close to call. Although, again, the summary, things have been a little too Trumpy in the last couple weeks of polls. I'd really rather them do something else.
There was one comment.
And I was going to move on to other politics. Yeah, go ahead.
No, but before, there was one comment that you made online, if I remember correctly. He said something that if they waterboarded you,
yes,
you would confess that you think that based on all of this mathematical shenanigans that we're talking about, that you think that they're underestimating Harris support.
Not on the mathematical shenanigans. On the mathematical shenanigans.
On the methodology.
No, my just gut feel about looking at everything, I have no rigorous logic behind it at all. It's just a gut feel.
Right.
And I think I said this on last week's show. Actually, I believe that it is more likely that they're underestimating Harris than they're underestimating Trump. And a big part of that is, first of all, there's all the shenanigans we just talked about like how they're doing weighting and methodology and blah, 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 but also just the enthusiasm gap that seems to be really obvious. Like, it's not, you can compare the rallies, and that's not really, you can't really tell, but also so many anecdotal stories that I've been hearing about how places that 4 years ago were coated with Trump flags and Trump posters and whatever, and are just empty right now, which isn't not saying those people aren't necessarily going to vote for Trump, but they're not as excited about it as they were. And the same thing is true.
A more factual thing, which is totally true, difference between 2016 and now.
Yeah.
I think that leading up to 2016, and we were talking about how Trump has emboldened all the racists. Okay.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about how a lot of people said that, when they asked me about it, I really don't want to admit, that I was supporting Trump. Okay.
Right.
But we have gone from that to where these guys basically just, will paint it on their chest and, whatever, and carry around a flag and stickers and, tattoo their ass with Trump's name. I'm sure somebody tattooed Trump's image on his ass and, on everywhere in their body, because I've seen a whole bunch of them. It's just,
they're probably a whole bunch doing the Roger Stone treatment, like he has Nixon on his back.
Nixon on his exactly. Well, yeah. Well, no, I thought it was Nixon on his dick.
Roger Stone has Nixon on his back. Now he may have Nixon other places too, but he certainly has it on his back.
I thought he said it was No. But I thought he said. I thought it was the tattoo on his dick too.
I have not seen pictures of that. I've seen pictures of the one.
I have not seen pictures of that either, and I don't want to. By the way, let me be clear: if anybody has it, don't send it to us.
You can just show up at one of the Roger Stone swinger parties too.
Oh God, no! Jesus Christ. Well, actually, if I showed up to one of those, just punch him dead in the face. Would that be okay? I think if there is a guy that I would meet that I would probably risk getting arrested for assault, it's Roger Stone.
You should punch him in the Nixon instead. One of the Nixons.
That's not a bad idea. I could start there. First kick him there and then punch him.
There you go. Anyway, so what were you saying? You were saying the more data-driven reason why you think it's blah, blah, blah.
No, what I was mentioning is that before the 2016 election, I think that there was definitely an effect of people not wanting to right. Not publicly wanting to declare their love of Trump, whereas now you're on the other end where people that are Trump have no problem declaring it loud and proud, wearing it on their head, wearing it on stuff. I mean, I still keep getting
I think
shocked by people that I think is. I will say that I think I've got 90+% of people that I think that I knew that or Trumpy like Trump, but still, I occasionally get surprised by this one person that actually, I probably was on the fence. I wasn't sure that all of a sudden just recently goes and puts themselves in a fucking picture on social media with a Trump hat on. And I'm like immediately at that point where I'm just like, okay, I never want to see your fucking face again. Thank you. Just because I don't even have that many friends on social media. So, I got maybe a couple under 500. So what I don't need that guy there. So But this is something that happens now where I see people like going to like fucking like beach parties wearing Trump hats. I'm just like, what the fuck is with these people? But I said,
although I think
but my point is that they are loud and proud now. So I don't think that there is something that
do you think they're less so now than 2020 though? Like,
what do you mean less so what?
Like than 2020. Like I know you were saying 2016 and the shy voters, they came out and were much more vocal in 2020. Do you think that's receded a little bit at this point?
No.
Okay.
Nothing. No. I just think that they're less. I think
you think they're less. Like the people who are loud and proud are still loud and proud, but there are a lot of people who are sort of like, yeah. And I think that's the case. I mean, and again, I keep hearing these anecdotal stories, and the reason you'd have to waterboard me for me to say this, well, I guess I've said it, but like the reason I don't like put it on my election graph.
I didn't have to do that. There you go. I'm actually happy that I didn't. I'm really happy that I didn't have to waterboard you for the answers. Okay, I am glad. Yeah.
The reason why I won't inject this into my election graphs analysis, where I'm going to stick to the numbers on election graphs, and with the range of variation that the polls have had historically, is because, again, and we mentioned this briefly before, but like there's so much room for motivated thinking here. Like I see all these anecdotes of like, oh, people who are like, they were diehard Trump supporters and now they're either sitting it out or they're going for Harris. And I hear more of those stories, and I hear people like making TikToks or whatever about how their previous Trumpy neighborhood now no longer has lots of flags and signs like it used to. And I'm like, yeah, okay, but am I seeing these because that's what I want to see? And meanwhile,
I know.
Meanwhile, there are plenty of neighborhoods where that stuff is just as strong as it used to. And even in the neighborhoods where it's less strong, maybe they didn't put out the sign, but they're still going to vote for them, and
look, I think that the thing is how to empirically measure this, right? Yeah. And it's very difficult.
And that's where you get to the polls have it too close to go.
Right. And it goes because even when we, because you can take data from 2016, 2018, 2020, 2022, and you can see the shifts, in voting in locations. But one thing that we know from past experience is that midterm election voting doesn't necessarily directly translate into
Nope.
into general election.
It's a different
voting.
group of people who
And
show
so
up.
It's a different group of people, and you've seen trends, and sometimes those trends do translate, but you can't. But there isn't a track record where that is the case. And so it's tough to go and look and say, okay, look, we know what's happened since 2020. We've seen every special election. We know the details. We know how Democrats have won consistently. But historically, that hasn't directly translated into presidential. It doesn't mean that it's not an influencing factor. And it's why I think that you and I keep speculating that maybe we're undercounting. But at the same time, we can't really say that those data points actually translate into something that directly correlates to the general election.
We won't know till they start counting the votes. And that's
we won't know till
that's the bottom line with this scenario right now. And we spent a lot of time last week talking about that doesn't necessarily mean the actual result of the election is going to be super close. It might be. But the problem is that
it might be
within the data we have now, it could also be a really healthy Trump win. It could also be a really healthy Harris win. And it's even possible that one or the other would have a landslide.
Right.
It's just that we don't know.
We don't know.
And I really would feel so much better if in these last few weeks, how many days now is this stupid thing?
Less than 30, 20 something.
Yeah, it is. As of this moment, 25.8 days as we're recording till we're done. And yeah, I would feel so much better if Harris was able to pull out another 4 or 5% out of her ass or something, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And
here's the thing, we've talked about again, it's not a popular vote thing. I mean, even the consistently, the national popular vote polls show that Harris is ahead.
Right.
By what margin is the question, but she's ahead. It
has declined a little bit in the last couple of weeks, but she's ahead.
She's ahead. Okay. She's solidly ahead. So,
So let's move on. Let's move on from polling and stuff and talk about some of the other things that are going wrong there, or going on, not necessarily wrong. I did want to mention one of the things Harris has been doing. People have been complaining, oh, you're not doing enough interviews. You're not talking to the press. You're not answering hard questions, blah, blah, blah. This week, she went on an interview blitz. She was all over the place. She was on Howard Stern. She was on this, what's it called? Who's her daddy? Call her daddy. Stop, dude. No. I have to. I was going to get through this whole podcast without any interruptions that I'd had to edit out, but no. Okay. Stop. See you later. I'll see you when I'm done. Yeah, she's been on Howard Stern. She's been on this Call Her Daddy podcast thing, which I'd never heard of before, but is apparently really, really popular with under 35 women.
You don't know about.
She was on 60 Minutes. She was on
and Trump declined to be on 60 Minutes.
Trump declined. She was on Colbert. She was on all over the place, right? Now, I still heard complaints that she's on the wrong places. She's not doing serious news, blah, blah, blah. Now, come on, 60 Minutes.
60 Minutes?
Really? But okay, fine. But all these others, she was like, those are fluffy, those are soft, those are whatever. And I'm like, come on, you fucking asshole people. First of all, when she has been on serious news things, for the most part, I think 60 Minutes was a little bit better, but some of the other ones she has done, it's been trying to ask her to respond to Trump nonsense, or it's been trying to do gotchas on like, hey, your position 8 years ago was slightly different than your position today. What do you have to say about that? And stuff like that. And it's not really, I don't, people are like, make her talk about the issues in detail and policy and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, look, if you really want policy, it's all out there. You can go find it. Okay. But this is not how people decide elections. What you want to know about, you want to know about her values, and you want to know about her character. That's what you want to know. And
listen, every day, what the policy doesn't matter.
And maybe competence, with
some. Well, but yeah,
and none of it applies to Trump, of course. Yes, like because he's a babbling moron. Trump, with no competence whatsoever, with no character whatsoever, and it's still a goddamn toss-up election. But what gets people about Trump, though, the people who do like Trump like him because they like that kind of personality, and they like that they feel like
they like idiots.
They like idiots, but they also feel like he hates the same people they hate, and that matters to them. And he's gonna poke the liberals in the eye, and
listen. So let's be clear about this. We're talking about what Trump. These guys are complaining this week about Trump policy. Bob Woodward came out with is coming out with a book.
With a new book, yeah.
Right. With a new book. And let's see. Trump was shipping fucking COVID tests to Putin.
Now, and I want to be very careful when we say this, because everybody, when the first headline comes out, you think, oh, you send in the little boxes of the home tests. No, he was sending the really expensive, large hospital quality tests that were in very short supply at the very beginning of the pandemic, that governors and hospitals were fighting to try to get, so they could do real-time quick analysis of who had COVID and who didn't in the early stages of the pandemic. This was before the little home tests. This was before all that he was sending. Go ahead.
I mean, let's see. What else did he do? Oh, he's been calling Putin all the time. Like right now, ever since we
now,
hey, buddy.
Now, Putin, by the way, Putin's spokesman confirmed the thing with the tests, but said the phone calls haven't been happening. Now,
oh come on,
take what you want out of Putin's spokesman said.
Exactly. Thank you very much. I mean, what the hell else? I mean, it's just.
The double standard is amazing.
An entire range of egregious fucking bullshit. I mean, this motherfucker was shipping critical medical equipment that we needed to a thug that is out to destroy this country.
Now, Yvonne, you could say it was an important sort of diplomatic way to improve relations and get some trust and try to work a deal with him.
Uh-huh.
Now, Putin, apparently, the other thing that Woodward reported is Putin specifically told Donald, don't tell anybody about this.
Yes. I wonder why. And they mentioned how going to Mar-a-Lago is like going to North Korea. I don't know if I mentioned this.
This was a Lindsey Graham quote.
I actually got somebody invited me to Mar-a-Lago like about 8 months ago, somewhere along that, and I looked at him like, are you out of your... I looked at him. I said this. Are you out of your fucking mind? I wouldn't be caught dead in Mar-a-Lago. But I hear people, man, people that are... It's like a magnet for grifters right now. It's like a magnet for grifters. Let me change that. It's a magnet for grifters. It is the ultimate grifter magnet. I mean, as we're talking about this, I don't know. He was selling some other shit this week. I can't remember what the latest one. Another scammy thing this week. It wasn't. What the fuck? What did the?
Yeah,
I was like, it's just.
We talked about the watches last week. There were the coins. There were the coins.
Yeah, we had the coins. The watches.
There's a crypto thing.
Crypto. There was another scam this week. I can't remember what the hell it was.
Right.
But
there's so many.
It's like you keep losing track every fucking week. It's like some other fucking, scam thing that he's selling. I don't. And you talk about the double standard thing. I mean, what fucking president that every week announces like selling Bibles made in China for $3? Okay, so he's got those. Okay, Mister, I hate the China Bibles. We had Elon paying $47 per person to register to vote. Was that was another scam thing? Is that legal?
I think so, actually, because you're not paying them to vote a particular way. You're just trying to get them to register.
Okay.
But what wasn't Elon actually? He was paying to get the information of other people to try to influence.
Right.
Like there was some level of indirection in there. I forget the details, but there's a liberal organization, Cards Against Humanity. They have a game, but they're also lobbying in various things. They're doing something similar in the other direction too. So
I'm like, I don't know. I know that he announced. I saw that there was some other things. It's just every week there is I go and I turn it and I'm like, oh, well, you could go and buy the new Trump, whatever, dick measure or whatever. I don't know. Oh my God. That would be, yeah, exactly. It's a tape measure. You could measure dick against Trump's to see if you have the ability of the greatest president that we have ever had. I mean, I'm sure that he would fucking sell that if I fucking told him that we could get $59.99 for each one of those, and then he gets 50%.
Well, that's lovely. I looked up the Cards Against Humanity thing just to put it out here. Here's an article in The Hill. Cards Against Humanity to pay swing state non-voters to make a plan to vote.
Okay.
And so this came out October 10th. Cards Against Humanity is jumping into the 2024 White House election by offering to pay blue-leaning non-voters in swing states to create a plan to vote. They rolled out a website on Tuesday to encourage people who did not cast ballots in 2020 to vote this November. They are looking to pay some battleground state voters up to $100. The payment could be received if the eligible voter writes an apology for not casting a ballot in 2020, makes a voting plan, and posts on social media, "Donald Trump is a human toilet." So anyway,
I mean that sounds okay. That's an interesting plan. I just it's the double standard thing, man.
It's
so
amazing.
Sick and tired of it.
Donald Trump is practically drooling on the floor at his campaign rallies at this time.
Yes,
and meanwhile, Harris is intelligently answering questions to all kinds of interviewers. And by the way, I just getting back to it for a second, these non-serious interviewers, I've listened to part of the Howard Stern interview, and I've listened to part of the Call Her Daddy.
Howard Stern has turned into a very good interviewer as he has aged. Okay, by the way.
Yes. But what I was going to say is both the Call Her Daddy interview and the Howard Stern interview were miles above other interviews I've heard in terms of actually asking interesting questions that elicited interesting answers that weren't just talking points that I'd heard 100 times before, that gave you insight into the person, into Harris as a person, not just as, whatever. Now, some of the stories I'd heard before, because I've paid attention, but they were actually asking interesting questions, whereas the traditional journalists asked bullshit crap. Like, what do you think about Donald Trump saying that you only recently turned black?
Right.
Okay, you give her a chance to like dismiss that, but like that doesn't tell you anything. But instead, some of these other interviews are like actually, and I apologize, I'm not prepared. I don't have an example on the top of my head. I'm just telling you the general impression. And I didn't listen to all of either interview, but I listened to enough of both interviews to be like, this is what an interview of a presidential candidate should sound like.
Yeah.
And I managed to get myself completely distracted from whatever point I was actually making before that. But
we were talking about the double standard.
Oh yeah, the double standard. Because like Harris is answering intelligently about all this stuff, has depth to her answers, clearly knows what she's talking about, and Donald Trump makes what was the latest example? There was it was another person like ragging on the New York Times, and I know like people like to do that.
Yeah.
Oh, but here's what it was. Donald Trump made some comments this week about immigrants and how basically saying the old racist trope about them being inferior because of their genes and they are polluting the gene pool and all of this kind of stuff. The New York Times headline was, in remarks about migrants, Donald Trump invoked his long-held fascination with genes and genetics. And it's like, this gets back to the sane washing that we talked about a couple weeks ago. It's like, when there's this really strong desire to paint this election as a normal election, as a choice between two policy ideologies with normal candidates who behave normally, and like pretend this is, Gore versus Bush, or Obama versus Romney or whatever. It's not.
No.
But there's this super desire to seemingly pretend that it is. And so, so on the one hand, you try to take whatever the hell Donald Trump is doing and try to present it in a more normal light. And at the same time, as Harris is already talking intelligently about something, so you try to play gotcha and be like, oh, but that's different than what you said 6 years ago. And can you explain, there's this one hole in what you're talking about, and can you go into more detail on this, and how have you explained how you're going to pay for this, and all this kind of stuff, where, again, Donald Trump has no idea about fucking anything, and here we are. Yeah. Other than hate, other than, he's all in it for himself, and there are a whole bunch of people he hates, and he wants revenge for all the people who've taken him, who have treated him badly over the years. And I mean,
companies,
voters. He directly talks about how this campaign is all about retribution. Is not even hiding it. It's like there. It's one of the main themes of the campaign. And there you go. Anyway, what else we got? We had a request on the Curmudgeon's Corner Slack from Pete to talk about how shockingly Trumpy Generation X is. And I know you exchanged some articles with him on the Slack, but I didn't have a time to look at them. So,
well, I did share the article, and the one thing is, because there's been several analysis of this, and one of the things that keep happening, that's why I shared that article, about it, is that a big part of the problem is how you measure Generation X. Okay, and what the range of years that you take for Generation X, and how you measure it, and it once you dig through the data, it's not borne out that way. I just I mean, I guess it's a little bit more.
At this point, haven't people pretty much standardized around like what
No, some
1965
people.
to 80?
The problem is that no, nobody uses the same range. Part of the problem
They're
is that
pretty
a lot of the polls.
close.
Now, a part of the polls. Now, when you add people and you go like, well, we're going to go up to 60. The problem is that a lot of people do the surveys and they take an age range that they did and they use that as a proxy for Generation X.
Right, because the age ranges in surveys are usually like 50 to 55, or
and
20
then they
to
try
50.
to use that as a right, and then they try to use that as a proxy for a generation when they're not
actually asking those generational ages. Yeah.
No, and a whole bunch of the times, almost every time that you dig into it, then you find that Generation X is probably like 50 some odd. It's never the majority of Generation X that's it's Trumpier. It's a lot. There's a lot more people that I would like in the 40% in the 40s, but it's still majority not Trumpy. It is what the data, what a lot of the data analysis shows once you dig under the hood of the numbers. But yeah, I will admit that it's. I would like it to be better than that, but I think that and that I think also varies by region. It's
generations are really a made up concept anyway. It's not really as like straightforward. Like people ascribe all of these qualities to, this generation is like this and that generation is like that, and really no. There are some societal trends that the general concept that what is going on during your formative years has an effect on people's personalities. Oh yeah, of course. That's almost obvious. Like, did you grow up during a time of recession or did you grow up in a time of economic boom? What was going on in politics at the time that you were first paying attention to politics? That, of course, that stuff makes a difference, but actually chunking it up into defined generations is kind of bogus to begin with. And like you said, even when people talk about like boomers, right? I mean,
right.
The whole thing with boomers, there was a whole sort of culture war thing going on that, if you were talking conservative boomers versus liberal boomers, whole different universe.
God, yes, they are very, very different. And even like in that analysis that I showed, it was like kind of like it showed it showed that in the last election, the majority of like the really older Americans voted blue. It was like the group in between. It was like really like it was just interesting how trends have
how things are really how things are really more complicated and don't fit the simple explanations that people try to put on them.
Yeah. I will also say that, look, there are patterns depending on where you were. I mean, like where you were educated. Look, I will say that if you look at our cohort of people that for example, went to school with us, I mean, it's not 100%, but vast majority of us are definitely not MAGA.
Well, yeah,
with some exceptions, some
notable exceptions, but we know the high, if you actually look at this stuff, yes, there are correlations with age. Yes, there are correlations with generations, which are based on age. But the biggest correlations in American politics right now are educational level and rural versus urban. And and there's some correlations to sort of demographics and income and things like that, but rural versus urban and education are the two biggest correlations to political orientation right now. And
I
gender,
think that
the gender gap is getting huge. It's bigger than it has been in a long time.
Oh, by the way, women are getting more educated, by the way.
Yes.
Versus men, which that also has an influence. Okay.
Yes.
I will say that there was a bumper sticker that I saw that somebody showed a picture that I think more clearly explained this entire thing. And what they said is that the less you understand how things work, the more likely you are to believe in conspiracies.
Well, yes.
And that's just reality. You know, when you don't understand how anything the fuck works, some idiot comes out and tells you that fires were created by space lasers, you know, that the wildfires in Hawaii were started by space lasers. You know, and you don't know shit about nothing, you might believe that. Okay? You have more of a probability to believe that.
Or people are steering, or Joe Biden is steering the hurricane with a joystick on his desk in the White House.
With a joystick, yes. But you know, because they don't understand that you have the joystick.
Right, exactly.
Right. I mean, that's very clear. And I think that's the biggest fucking divide I think that we have. You know, it's this whole thing like I mentioned recently about the conversation I had.
The one caveat I'll put on that is there are plenty of MAGA people who actually do understand in quite a lot of detail exactly what is happening, but are going to use it for grifting and manipulating.
Well, that's the other. Well, then you've got that. Well, but that group. Wait, that group knows what the fuck is going on.
Yes.
Those guys are just trying to profit off whatever the fuck it is.
They're trying to profit off profitable. The idiots.
Yes, correct. And that's the only thing they care about.
And I don't want to underestimate too. There is sort of this fundamental cultural divide going on as well that is being taken advantage of all these forces of this huge group of people who feel like they're losing control and that their vision of America is losing out, and all of this grifting and influence control, all of this MAGA stuff that's building on top of this is taking advantage of those feelings in order to gain power and money.
No, and I think that, yes, and I think that's the thing. Is this I found the data that we're talking about in splits in generational voting, and no matter how you cut it in, like, and this is a Washington Post article that I shared that was actually digging into the data.
Give the title and the date so people can find it if they want it.
The title, this was last year. Gen X is not the Trumpiest generation. Period. Washington Post. This is by Philip Bump. This was 1 year ago, because he decided to dig into the data because, you know, people had been saying this. Okay. And, you know, he did go and did the deeper analysis and trying to understand what was going on. It actually showed, like, in 2016, that silent generation voters, for example, they have been clearly on the Trump side of the ledger, no matter how you slice the data. I think it was like, you know, they were definitely significantly there. Boomers less so. Okay. It was more silent generation more than anything else. But no matter how you slice the data, 2016, 2020, whatever, Gen X wasn't. Okay. Now, I will say one thing that you noticed about the vote between 2016 and 2020, that no matter how you slice the data, was that there was a lot of other in Gen X in 2016. And a lot of what happened there is that a lot of those others actually moved to vote Trump. The ones that were others. But still by, you know, a majority, still, you know, still not, you know, still not Trumpy. So it showed that definitely the Trumpiest generation, for sure, silent. Those guys definitely are the ones that really are the Trumpiest of all in the analysis of the data. So
there you go.
You know, so that's the bottom line. It's, you know, so if you look at it, you dig into the numbers.
So in other words, the Trumpiest people in American government right now, Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi.
Basically, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
But but once we go back to this thing, look, it's what we were talking about again. Look, like I mentioned, man, I think the education either, like you said, winds up working in two ways. Either you understand what the fuck is going on, and you're just a prick, and you just want to fucking profit off of it, and you don't give a fuck. Or, you're like us. I was just, the other day calculating my taxes again, and I have to pay again. And, I thought about it for a second, and I realized it's what I got to do. As much as people hate on Bill Gates, the other day he was saying, hey, you know what? I should be taxed more. As a matter of fact, I think my estate should be taxed like almost double what it is. Or triple, something like that. He was advocating for an estate tax that would basically take 2/3 of what he has. Mm-hmm. And that would be okay. And so, because he understands how important that is for society. Recently, there was an interesting case. I'm talking about estate tax.
Okay.
There was a guy in Texas, who some people have been sleuthing to find out who the hell he was. And they found out he was some obscure billionaire that nobody knew he was a billionaire after he died. That did not do anything on purpose to avoid the estate tax. And wound up paying the biggest estate tax bill by almost like 7 to 10 times more than anybody had ever paid. It was a $7 billion estate tax payment when he died. Once people started digging into around the guy, what they found out that the guy was just a pretty decent guy, and he had left some money to his kids. And what he said is, well, I could create a charity or something or whatever, or maybe my money just go to the government so they can do what we need, for people. And paid his estate when he died wound up being the largest estate tax bill ever. I was like, and this guy was an investment manager, find out. So this is not a guy that was not unsavvy about money or whatever. This guy apparently had been managing.
In other words, he could have avoided the taxes if he wanted to.
No doubt about it. He just decided not to.
Right.
Paid the ticket.
Okay. Shall we wrap this up?
Yep.
Okay. Thanks everybody for joining us for another Curmudgeon's Corner. You can go to curmudgeonscorner.com or curmudgeons-corner.com, I should say, because some asshole took curmudgeonscorner.com. So I always have the hyphen.
Oh, fuck you.
Yeah. So
not you. I mean, the guy who took it, not you. I have to keep explaining this recently. I keep saying fuck you without saying, no, not you, them.
Well, and just like on YouTube, there's like 3 Curmudgeon's Corners or something like that at this point, and we're the last one to the party of putting it on YouTube. But and speaking of which, thank you, Sean, for watching live. He watched for one segment and then he dropped off. But
okay, all right. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
That's all. That's plenty.
That's plenty. Yeah. Curmudgeons-corner.com. You can find all the ways to contact us. You can find our archives, transcripts, blah, blah, blah. Importantly, you can find our Patreon so you can give us money. So if Bill Gates is listening, you do not have to give that money to the government. You can give it to us instead. We are fine with that.
Yes.
We're okay. Then we will pay our taxes if you do that. So yeah. Anyway, on our Patreon at various levels, you can we will mention you on the show. We will ring a bell. We will send you a postcard. We will send you a mug. All that kind of fun stuff at $2 a month or more. Or if you just ask us, we will invite you to our Curmudgeon's Corner Slack, where Yvonne and I and a bunch of listeners are chatting and sharing links throughout the week. Yvonne, do you have any highlights from the Curmudgeon's Corner Slack you'd like to share today?
Let's see. I'm trying to figure out none of the COBOL programming stuff. I think, we decided to go overly geeky on on programming, and I'm like, I realize that I'm even on the low end of the totem pole in my programming skills. Oh, here we go. Football game this weekend at Stanford University, and the Stanford band's halftime show had some girl dressed up in a cardboard Cybertruck that keeps losing control and running into things.
This morning when I was heading to work, I've seen many Cybertrucks at this point.
I've seen many.
There are a variety of them around. I actually don't know if it's many or if it's the same one I'm seeing over and over again, but I've seen a bunch. Okay.
Yeah.
But for the first time this morning, I saw a Cybertruck with the back open. Where the cargo is.
Were they parked or were driving?
Driving with the back open, like the cargo area was open instead of having that little lid thing on it.
Yeah, well, that's okay, but that's not.
It is supposedly a pickup truck, right? You should you open the back and you can put stuff there. Now I didn't see stuff.
Was there?
There might have been, but it wasn't big enough that it was sticking out or anything. But the back was open, and I was like, I haven't seen that before.
I haven't seen. I must admit that I haven't seen that before either. It's probably, I'm gonna guess, it's unintentional.
Right.
Oh, and I did find this and posted it lately, talking about Cybertrucks.
Yes.
That Tesla has finally revealed its Cybercab, and it looks like a smaller, sleeker Cybertruck, and he had a whole bunch of them, prototypes. However, deliveries are to be in 3 years. And given how he has missed deadlines, Bob already mentioned probably 2030, and I think he may be right. But this thing is about the most impractical, robo taxi I've ever seen, because it could only fit 2 people.
Right.
I guess there are a lot of people. They're single passenger rides, but
is it a proper one that where it really is truly complete? There is no steering wheel. You're only a passenger.
No, I saw that there is a wheel. I think I don't know. I think I wasn't. Oh God, I gotta look.
Because I don't really truly believe these are truly doing what you what you would want on a fully autonomous vehicle, unless there is no manual override. The person inside the car can only specify the destination.
Well, here's the thing. I will say that the ones that Waymo has been driving around do have a wheel, but there is no manual override.
Right.
Even though the wheel is present there, you can't use it.
So wait, if you hop into the front, you can't take over.
That's correct. Yeah, it has to be, if somebody needs to do it, it's remotely. So right. I know that's been an issue, because I've seen these get stuck somewhere, and the people inside getting yelled at by somebody outside, and they're like,
can't do anything.
I can't do anything. I'm like, so yeah, so I know that's been the case, even if they've left that. But I know that there was a video. Now that you're saying this, there was a video of him driving around. So now let me pull up, and there's a whole bunch of robots and more robots, and I don't know, stupid robots dancing, and I don't know. Who gives a shit about the fucking robots dancing? So let me see. Here's a video, and I'm looking, and there was a video with Elon riding inside one, and they did it inside a Hollywood studio. And so it's in a controlled area. They didn't do this demo out on the road. But I see Elon sitting behind a wheel, but not behind a wheel, because he's in the passenger seat. But I saw him there, but I couldn't see inside. So I can't tell if
okay.
But he was sitting there looking like an idiot. Well, I guess looking like himself. Anyway.
Well, we didn't mention his appearance at the Trump rally where he was jumping around.
Yeah, looking like a complete fool. I don't understand how he just didn't lose Pennsylvania with that stroke.
Yes. Well, anyway, let's wrap it up. I will say I'm trying to post blog posts on electiongraphs.com as well as the updates. So check it out periodically. I'll probably do one over the weekend, just to get another one out there. And yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We have an election coming really, really freaking fast at this point. So we'll see you all next week. I guess this is it. No. Hold on. Back off. We're closing it up. You will get attention from me if you don't keep.
Okay. Well, one more thing.
One more thing.
One more thing. I think I don't know if I mentioned last week that the provider of our car chargers for our. I don't remember if this happened before the last show. But the provider of our car chargers went and announced that they were shutting down their North America operations, and then at that moment said, "Oh, we're shutting off all the software."
The car chargers for your condo.
For a condo, and they just went, and the software won't work. And I think that they must have gotten because the problem is that this isn't a small company. This is their U.S. subsidiary that we're shutting down, but this is a large global company that's still planning to sell these in other countries. I mean, and it's used by a lot of companies. I know that Florida Power and Light, our energy provider, was putting these in people's houses, for God's sakes.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they were saying they were shutting down the software. Well, I'm guessing that enough people yelled at the company loud enough that today, there was this day that was shutting down everything. He said, well, we're not really going to shut down the software and make all your chargers not work. It's just like, Jesus, you think? I mean, so at least I got that message. Now, there won't be any customer service, but we're not shutting down the software. Because they were saying, hey, we're shutting down all the software. We're pulling the apps from the App Store. I'm like, but wait a minute, you're still running this in Europe, but why the fuck are you shutting down the fucking service and just letting everybody out on the lurch?
You'd think in that scenario, at the very least, you'd sell it off to somebody else to manage or something.
Well, that's, I guess, what finally somebody screamed in their ear, and that's what they said today, that they were going to find how to do that. Okay. Because the first way they did it just made no sense whatsoever. I mean, it was just... And, the thing is, it's it's NL, which is a very large Italian, energy company. So, I mean, they were really giving themselves a black eye. They got some other big companies that bought this shit from them in North America, and they were screwing them. And I'm guessing that a couple of those picked up the phone and said, what the fuck are you doing? Oh, yeah, I guess that wasn't such a great idea. Gee, I'm like, sometimes executives make decisions.
Okay. Let's wrap this sucker up.
All right.
Hey, everybody, as usual, stay safe. Have a good week. We'll talk to you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.
Hey, before I shut this off, have you heard the Cybertruck song that's on TikTok and stuff? Cybertruck. Okay. I will include it for our listeners at the very end of the show. I do not have it ready. You can imagine what the word Cybertruck rhymes with. That would be part of the lyrics of that song. Anyway, I will find the audio and I will include it right here at the end. And so listen to that. Bye, everyone.